Oh, it's unplugged time. 249, Wes.
What?
249. Yeah, it's almost one. That's almost 250. I don't know if you knew that. Almost.
Is 250 like an unlucky number? Do we just skip it? Are we doing 251 next week?
I don't know. For some reason, 250 always feels like a big deal.
Yeah.
I know. Same with 50. 50, big deal. 51, meh.
Don't care about it.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, just phone it in.
I don't know what my problem is. Anyways, we're setting up for 249 right now. Mumble Room is open. People showing up. It's going to be a good show. Lots to get into. Holy crap. Too much stuff, really. I was like, I don't know if we're going to have enough time to cover all this. I've already moved stuff around. It is a thing.
You changed it up?
Toby's missing my initialization sound. That's for it.
Hello, Ruby, you're in Mickey Mouse mode.
Yep.
It's fine. Just keep it.
It's pretty awesome. It's not bad.
It's my best impression.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, you've been practicing.
I kind of want to watch you in an animated film right now. It sounds a little garbly too. Like maybe there's some other things going on.
Distortion.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know what he sounded like when he was a young lad.
You have some too. That would be a good way for him to voice a former version of himself, though. What's going on over there? Hey, citizen, are you unmuted? Say something for me. How do you sound?
Oh, hey there.
Yeah. Okay. Is it me?
Yeah. Is it us? Are we broken?
Not sure.
Am I not coming out all right?
It's mostly all right, but it's a little choppy. It's got some chop to it. Hello.
Like
That sounds
packet
better.
lost?
Yeah, I think
Is that me normal again?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, normal wimpy.
Yes. Let me take a look here. See if we're getting. You see anywhere where it says packet loss? Yeah, we're losing. We've lost 215 packets from the server. Not sure what's going on there.
Come back, packets.
Packets come back.
We were gonna be nice.
Maybe it'll even out. Who knows? Comcast has been particularly rough recently. Maybe I'm going to be going on the road on a good time because the internet on my MiFi might be
Chris?
better than... Yes.
Just take a squiz at Telegram. There's potential content for you there.
Squiz. Did you just made that up? That's not a term.
No, Toby and I take a squiz at things all the time.
I try not to look when Martin's having a squiz. But, okay.
Are you referring
you.
to this snap that I see here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
snap.
grabbed that. We're going to talk about that. We'll just mention that because that floats my boat. I mean, unless you don't want to talk about it in the show, but I kind of wanted to because it's right up my alley.
Hey, Wimpy, in IRC Cloud, I see your avatar in there, but I don't see
I know,
mine.
right? Yeah, you suck.
What? How?
Well, I've got to fucking fix this now.
Yeah, this is no good. How do we do this? How do we?
In the settings, there's a new option to add an avatar.
Oh. And then it only works across. Look at that. Now, I don't have just pictures of myself sitting around my computer, unfortunately. I need that.
Oh, I totally do.
Hey,
you got to step up your vanity game.
I like that one of Chris in his pants. And that's English pants, not American pants.
Okay, so what's the difference between the two? I mean, because you're talking shorts? Shorts. How do
Y fronts.
I want
pants are boxers and Y fronts.
Those are shorts. Look at the Quaswell IRC is looking a little rough right now.
Wow, this makes IRC Cloud actually feel a bit like Slack.
Yeah.
Well,
you're right.
I gotta get myself set up. I gotta do this.
Get decent.
I know. I gotta get a picture. I gotta add
So
it.
obviously, I've used the same headshot that I use everywhere. A picture from 9 years ago that makes me look a bit younger and less grey hair.
It's funny how people do that. It's funny how those just stick around.
Mine is 13 years old, and I desperately need a new image to use.
Mine's 9 years old as well.
Oh, you bastards.
I find it's best to refresh daily before you've showered, right after waking up when you're at your best.
The thing is like it'd be so obvious because I mean not so much anymore, but back when I was doing a video show, it would just be so obvious if I was using an old picture.
Right.
You know, it just would stick out like an old thumb. You bastards. Well, that makes IRC Cloud cool, but it only shows up to IRC Cloud users, so only us cool kids get to see it. That's kind
Maybe we didn't want to see it.
Yeah. All right, so let's do some sci-li here. How's the? It sounds like the hiccups. The hiccups have subsided. So that's good. The dogs, however, look
Yeah, terriers incoming.
they look a little bored. All right, so we're gonna do some silence here. Shh. Let's see, Wes. Could you shut the fuck up for a second?
Oh yeah.
All right, take a deep
Right
breath.
after this.
Here we go. Yeah, we have 2 dogs in the studio. Wes brings his dog sometimes on Tuesday. One of his 2 dogs on Tuesday. So it's a dog party in the studio on Tuesdays.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys. We have a lot to get into today. We have much to discuss. So let's do a little pre-show. Let's do a little pre-show. A little pre-show before we go any further.
Real light stuff.
All right, cool. Checking that. And let me also check, before we go too far, I'm going to also check our levels
check.
on this. It's a little hard. 249. I'm going to read Joe's intro. I like this. This is good. All right, but before we start, we do have a little pre-show topic here. Starting the show off with an amazing discovery, Archive OS, the Archive of Operating Systems. Its mission is to save great free operating systems, Linux, of course, the BSDs, the free DOSes, Solaris, and many other independent operating systems, and make it bootable. Look at this thing, Wes. How beautiful is this? It's like the Internet Archive in an ISO.
A testament to the ages.
So you can go check it out at archiveos.org. And I'm going to look into this more. I got to try this. They say it's important to save systems and let the next generation of users find them, try them, and learn as much as possible. This has been rattling around in my head. I haven't tried this, obviously, but what's been rattling around in my head is trying to set up some old VMs, or I should say set up new VMs of old versions of Linux, just to what was it like to use KDE2? What was it like to use GNOME 2? What was it really like? Because we refer to it all the time. I've been really tempted to set up some VMs to do this, just to have them sitting around when I want to try it.
Oh, yeah, right? And I think that's where this site is maybe useful. A lot of times, if you just, maybe you have a disk image or a tarball, but it's a long way from actually making things bootable. So if you have some of this set up or ready to go, you might actually use it.
That would be the perfect part. One ISO you download, you load it on your machine, and it boots the whole thing up. That would be the holy grail. Maybe they'll get there one day. But right now, they're just archiving these old great operating systems. If you do want to try this, it's a great resource for that, so you can build your own system. But one day, we may get to that ISO. Somebody should build it and call it the Linux Unplugged Booter. No, don't do that. Call it something else.
Yeah, definitely something else.
I'm surprised with all of those. You know what? I'm sure what Popey's approach is. If you guys listen to the latest Ubuntu podcast, Popey and Wimpy reveal. I won't say what they are. But if you listen to the latest Ubuntu podcast, they reveal how many laptops they each own.
Oh God.
And I'm going to bet that the number is higher than most people are going to guess, because it's there's not many people that have more computers than me, but you guys have a lot of computers, and just laptops. Those are just the laptops.
So looking at this archive of operating systems, I think I'm building my own little archive here. As I look at the pile of ThinkPads stacked up in the corner of the room,
you are building an archive.
Different operating systems.
How many do you have there? How many ThinkPads is it? Do you want to reveal the number?
Well, from what I can see in front of me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think, that I can see.
You could just have various different states of Linux on each one of them, like a cross section.
Yeah, I kind of like them to be usable, like actual usable machines, not just something that you put in a cupboard and never think about again. So there's actually 2 on my desk right now. One of them is a machine that we use for audio production. I don't actually use it. Samantha uses it for audio production on the podcast. But the other one that is on right now, I'm running offline IMAP to synchronize all my email down from Gmail, because I quite like having an offline copy of all my email, just in case anything goes wrong. I can open this laptop up and it's got a local copy of all my email, and I've got Mutt installed on there. So at a pinch, it's got no GUI. I've got no graphical interface on this thing at all. It's only command line applications and offline IMAP to sync my mail. and then Mutt if I need to actually write an email. It's
so
awesome.
now I can visualize you during the zombie apocalypse, hunched over this old laptop, reading your email on Mutt.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
totally. And I have a lot of email to read. So once the zombies come, I'll be quite busy reading all my old archives.
Right, of course.
But on that old laptop, only 7 minutes to read it all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out the best. I was looking at solar chargers, and if you want to go fully off grid, and like let's say you want to go on a boating holiday where maybe you don't have power,
sure.
You want to be able to recharge at some point. Yeah, you go and pop along on your boat, open up the solar sail or whatever, and recharge everything. I thought it was a good idea.
I am wondering about on this road trip to Tejas about bringing a listener sent me one panel that's kind of pre-wired to just like hook up to batteries. And I am wondering, would it be worth just putting that, when I'm parked somewhere doing shows, just putting that out and collecting some sun? Because there's going to be a lot of it. But I don't really know how to wire it in because I have two batteries that are wired together. It's not just like one battery. And I don't know how to hook that up.
Oh, is this like a big one that would go on the roof? Or?
Yeah, it's about that size. It's meant to go on a stand, though. It's supposed to be like a little portable one that you stand out and then just plug directly into a battery. It's really simple.
Nice.
I think it has like some minimal integrated charge controller, but not much. Okay, so let me make a couple of notes here for Joe. Pre-show.
Notes for show. But for Joe, pre-show, Alan talking about ThinkPads again.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, maybe. I wasn't recording all of it, so we'll see.
Good.
Let's see. Pre-show. Yeah, we'll see. What should we put in the pre-show? Pre-show could be what? Think about it, Chris. Come on, Chris. Come on. What could it be, Chris? What could it be? What could it be? Come on, Chris. Crack, Chris. I don't know, sir. I don't know. Come on, Chris. What is it, Chris? Come on. I would say, yeah. Archive.us. Right. Archive. He's probably editing right now, TechSnap, because we want to get it out for e-fail. Check one. Check. Wait a minute, I'm hearing a slight buzz somewhere. Check. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look for that. Checkity one, checkity two, checkity 1, 2, 3, boop-a-doop-a-doo. Why am I getting? I wonder, is it on Wes's line? No. Check. No, it's on my line. Well, that's just wonderful.
Hey, citizen, are you here?
Oh, hey there.
I'm getting a little buzz on my mic.
Buzz.
Yeah. Wonder if it. Let's see. I might have just check. Yeah, I think I just found it. There was a rogue power cable. All right, gentlemen, let's start this thing. Let's do this thing. It is. We're gonna start with. Well, I won't say.
Oh.
You have to wait and see.
All right. You never know, Wes. Maybe I won't even do it. You never know. All right, it's the Unplugged program. And the shit begins right now in 3, in a 2. I should probably save the project first. Holy smokes, don't ever do that. I don't know what that just did.
Wow, we're very clear about what episode it
Actually,
isn't.
and now that I look at it, it's the wrong number, so that's kind of... That was not what I wanted to do. Rando OBS problem. Not what I was intending to fix. But that's what we're going to do. How do I... Yeah, okay. How do I ever survive? Okay, if I hold down shift, does it not get all... Yeah, there we go. Boom. Look at that. Little live fix right there. Powski's episode 2 of Hearty 9. I don't even, you know. You know what I'm saying, Wes?
Oh, I do.
Do you know what I'm saying?
And I don't even. I
can't
know,
right?
even.
I won't even.
Never.
I
Not
refuse
once.
to even. All right, and this is 249, and there we go. All right, everyone, please put your seats in the upright position. Buckle your seat. buckle your belts in. Here we go. This fucking chair. This is Linux Unplugged, episode 249 for May 15th, 2018. Oh, welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that undoubtedly should have gone to that English class more often. And my name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
I'm just saying, might have helped out in this whole podcast.
It probably would.
Went into
Too
IT,
late for that? No.
Ended up podcasting. You know, Wes, we'll muddle through. We have a great show. We're going to talk about GNOME removing the ability to launch binary apps. That's been the hot topic in our community this week.
Hot.
Yeah. We'll do a deep dive into the new bookmark sync stuff that's coming to Firefox, talk about System 76 and LVFS's back and forth, and some new features that look like they could be coming to GNOME if Will Cook gets his way. Wimpy's here with a new trick, and malware may have been found in the Snap store. Is everything ruined? We'll get all worked up and super upset. Plus, the folks from Plasma, well, some of them at least, went to Berlin and came back with some code. We'll talk about data collection in 1804 and some of the attempts to generate controversy for ad clicks, and Purism gets busted by Intel. We alluded to this on a recent Linux Action News, but now we have a lot more details. And then we'll ask if Docker is dangerous, and if it's time to just drop that all GTK or all cute mentality. Is it still relevant today, Wes?
We'll find out.
Don't answer. We're going to get into that. But before we go any further, we got to bring in that Mumble Room. Time appropriate greetings, Mumble Room. Heyo, heyo.
Hello.
Hi.
Day.
I like that. That was a good mix this week. Didn't expect that one coming. So I want to start with the elephant in the room, and that is the story about GNOME removing the ability to launch binary apps from Nautilus. So we got the big news from last GNOME release really was the removal of the desktop application icons, the desktop icons from Nautilus, and now it looks like this is sort of a continuation of that cleanup is really launching binary applications when you double click on them in Nautilus. So like .bin and .run files. Perhaps app images as well, .desktop shortcuts, or like a shell script that you might execute. You know, like the dumb arse that I am, apparently doing things the old way. I just downloaded a new game off of Good Old Games, GOG, and was assuming I would just be able to double click and run it. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have definitely considered opening the terminal and running it that way.
Of course you should. You should be running all your programs that way, Chris.
Now, it's pretty easy to poke fun at this decision, and it of course plays into that whole narrative of GNOME always removing functionality. I think the common reaction I've seen on the various internet outlets is just when you thought GNOME couldn't take any more functionality, they're taking away the ability to run apps. But that's a little hype. It's not really that. It's more really about how apps should be launched from the app launcher. And the Files app should be managing files. And they think removing the ability to launch binaries from Nautilus will improve its security. And, of course, there'll still be other ways to launch apps. So what do you think? Initial impressions when you hear this kind of thing, Wes, are you so tired from drama that you don't really, is it just, you're just sort of numb to it? Or do you have like a strong response to this?
Okay, I will admit to being at least a little bit numb. I also have some sympathies. I feel like GNOME gets viewed as so many different things and a lot of different roles. Some of that might be valid, especially now that they're on so many desktops by default. But that's really the distribution's choice. I can see why GNOME wants to craft things into a more elegant desktop for the future. Maybe not all users are ready for that. I can see why people want to keep a lot of standard paradigms around. I personally don't need them. I'm okay with GNOME developing into whatever it is that they want. I understand why it upsets people, though, because, hey, this is a lot of people's workflows. You can't do it anymore.
You're not allergic to bees, are you? Because there is a
Wow.
wasp. Here, maybe you could put this on top of them. There you go, Wes. There, just maybe you could trap that wasp that's walking around by your hand there, Wes. Just a little Pacific Northwest summer. There you go. That surely won't piss him off. Now he's trapped in the bell. Now let's ring it. All right. Well, I agree. I think that people often lump GNOME into one singular category when it's a bunch of individual developers and people that are doing a lot of different work, and it often encompasses many projects. And all of those disclosures aside, I can't imagine something like this ever landing in like Kaja, for example. What do you think, Wimpy? Could you see a rationale for something like this landing in a Mate desktop environment?
Well, probably not, because we choose not to remove features if at all possible. So the only time features go away is when they can't technically be supported anymore. But then I was thinking about this. How often do people actually launch binaries with the file manager?
I think it's more common to a group of people that this is going to most negatively impact, and that's new users that get switched to Linux or people that are buying commercial software. I've definitely noticed the folks that I've helped move to Linux, they have like this habit of Google searching and then going and downloading the deb or downloading a binary file, or like when you buy something from GOG.
Right, I can see that. Or like, I use this program. Oh, they have Linux. I'm finally on Linux. They gave me a tarball. What do I do with this?
Yeah.
So a deb isn't executable though, right? You double-click a deb and it launches something else that handles the installation, or you double-click an image, or...
I'm just commenting on the behavior. That's just the behavior. I think the instinct for Windows users is to download things off of the vendor's website, whoever that vendor might be.
Right, but even those crazy lunatic third-party app developers create desktop files and launchers, and like if you download, like let's say for example, a simple example like Telegram. If you go and get Telegram from their website, there's a simple executable. You run it once, and then you've got an icon forevermore on in your launcher, your menu. Or
right. Same with the GOG game. You know, I bought that new fancy looking space game. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, space
but
game.
It looks really good. And it's a bin file that downloads, and then when you double click it, it then launches a GTK installer, and that does create a .desktop file and all that kind of stuff. But you got to double-click that bin file to get that GTK installer to create the desktop file.
But is the ultimate goal of this in the GNOME project to break the habit of these bad patterns of downloading something from the internet and then just double-clicking it and expecting it to work and it not be full of malware?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think you could make a pretty solid security argument from that standpoint, and you could argue if they feel the code isn't up to snuff that they shouldn't be maintaining it. You could just base the argument off of that.
It does kind of remind me too of some of the, maybe like a Chrome OS type environment or iOS, where these newer environments that were designed in the world we have now don't have some of these legacy things, but people who are familiar enough with the file system, familiar enough with just like running binaries, feels like a big loss. I don't really ever do this. I guess the one area it kind of sucks for app images, maybe.
Yeah.
Other than that, it doesn't really affect me.
I guess I just don't agree that you can change user behavior this way. I don't think this ever works. I think you just piss off users. And I think what you're going to have is...
filter your base then, right?
And you're going to have distros that are just going to ship another extension. Just like they're shipping extensions now to restore desktop icons, or they're shipping extensions now to restore tray icons. Now they're going to be shipping an extension to execute binary files. That's likely the biggest impact, is that it'll just be now the work of the distribution maintainers.
Or they'll hold back the version of Nautilus that has this patched out and patch it back in again.
Yeah, maybe. I have a link to the mailing list discussion. I'd say give it a read and give the team some slack to just figure this stuff out. Like, the world hasn't fallen apart with the removal of desktop icons from GNOME 3.2.8.
True.
We're still here. We're still holding good, and people that really need it have extensions.
I think also there's people have extensions, and if you're listening to this program, you probably know that there's a bunch of other fine desktops. So, if we're having this debate in the context of like what should the new user experience be or the standard, that's one thing. But for a lot of us, we just don't have to care because there's lots of choice.
Popey, are you still rocking Firefox as your daily driver of UCave to Chrome?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. No,
same here.
The only reason I use Chrome is to talk to Wimpy on a daily basis because the video chat thing we use only works in Chrome.
Yeah, I have.
I've made an Electron app of the video conferencing tool we make, so I don't have to have Chrome or Chromium installed anymore.
Nice.
How do you make an Electron app of any rando website? I would love to know that.
I will send you a link in IRC to the Ubuntu tutorial guide that explains how to do it.
Thank you, because I have a similar situation. I have one app that I have to use Chrome for. Yeah,
that's a great. We should do that. Yep.
I know. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So Firefox is just getting better and better. And Beta 61 and the Nightly 62 have a new sync system that is going to address sort of all of the complaints, actually, I've really ever had with Firefox bookmarks. This is something, their sync system with Firefox bookmarks has always sort of been a retrofitted solution where Chrome was sort of engineered from the beginning.
Yeah.
And now Firefox, the team over at Mozilla that creates Firefox for iOS, has quite a bit of experience with this, because when they created Firefox for OS, they created it with syncing in mind. And they created this whole JSON system, and they created this dual database system of your active bookmarks and the synced bookmarks, and even a third database for conflict resolution. And then they had a really great system for keeping it all straight and keeping track of everything. And when they engineered this, they looked back at their Firefox desktop sync engine and said, well, how could we apply lessons learned to the iOS sync engine to the desktop? And that's now essentially what they're doing. They're going to have a mirror and a merger database. They're going to have more of an iOS inspired. It's not a direct 3 database like one-for-one re-implementation of the iOS system, because there is just historical legacy things they have to support. But in a sense, they're going to be building into Firefox a shadow bookmarking system that will be kept syncing separately from your primary bookmarks. And that's where it'll work out, like merging of conflicts or other issues that crop up when you're syncing bookmarks or adding new items or editing existing items. And that'll be happening much faster in the background, and it has a graceful way to get out when there's a conflict that it can't figure out.
So then this is just sort of a new system being added, bolted on, that will take the same data and do better things with it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're starting to roll it out in 61 and 62 in different phases. I have those details linked in the show notes if you want to read the whole post. If you're a big Firefox fan and you're curious about this battle and why it's sort of been a little clunky. They even identify some of the issues that I thought I was just crazy. I thought these were just problems that I had, and now I'm seeing Mozilla just say...
The list is pretty damning there. You're right. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't make you confident.
No, bookmarks would be duplicated, lost, or reordered. I have absolutely experienced the reordered thing. And folders with different contents would get smushed together. New bookmarks wouldn't make their way to all devices, causing them to gradually fall out of sync. And moves would be partially or completely undone at times.
There you go. Yeah, right? Wow.
And I thought I was just using it wrong. And I thought Chrome did it a lot better. And that was one of the things that first drew me to Chrome. I went back. I feel like it's been pretty solid, but I've also kind of reduced how much I use bookmarks.
Same, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to these changes.
Definitely should check the article out. I thought it was a great level of... There's a lot of technical details without too much. There's not a ton of code, but they talk about the advanced designs of the system. So,
and it's also worth mentioning, recently I've gotten a little more critical about the way Mozilla communicates. It's very corporate heavy, and it's sort of a turnoff to, I think, a lot of members of the open source and free software communities. And so reading that, I'd say it was very clear. It was technical.
Felt like it was written to us.
Mm-hmm. I liked that a lot. I liked that. And if you want to go read that whole thing, go to linuxunplugged.com/249, and we'll have a link in there. I've talked a lot on this show about LVFS and the whole firmware update mechanism that I first experienced on an XPS 13 running Fedora, and then later different distributions, including Arch.
And it was just so exciting.
Yeah, you're in the software updates, and you go to the updates, and like, what? There's a new firmware update?
Crazy.
And then we really saw the value of having that system when Spectre and Meltdown were announced.
Yeah.
And this system, LVFS, is sort of it's a Red Hat project that is attempting to be distro and vendor neutral. We've covered a lot in the past. Richard Hughes is the primary developer behind it. I think he's done some great work, and I love the idea of something that's cross-vendor, so Lenovo or Dell could participate in it, and you can be on Arch, Fedora, or Ubuntu, and you're getting these firmware
Doesn't matter,
updates.
yeah, right?
Yeah, that's great. So I've always been a fan of, well, let's get LVFS in all of the places. And so that's why I think other people have felt that way too. And there was some interest in what was System 76 going to be doing. Now that they have Pop! OS and that they'll be building their own hardware soon, what is their intention to participate in the LVFS program? And then it came out that in the background there had been some communication between System 76 and the project.
It's not like they weren't aware of it, right?
Right, but nothing of major substance that had really progressed anything beyond like, hey, can we do this? How does this work? Things like that. And it seems like things just sort of faded out. There was some rumors that, they started talking to us from the LVFS camp, but We haven't heard anything. And then about a year went by, and Richard Hughes posted a blog post where the crux of it is this isn't going anywhere. They're not going to use our project. They're going to do their own update mechanism that they've created.
Okay.
And if you want somebody who supports LVFS, go get an XPS 13. And Carl took to the System 76 blog and wrote a kind of line-by-line response where he says, we reached out to Richard over a year ago. We were enthusiastic about LVFS and interested in whether or not it would work for us. Once we described how we needed to deliver our firmware, we were told that it would not work well and would likely not be acceptable to Red Hat Legal. And they kind of post a snippet of the issue. Richard Hughes says, I don't think this will work for us because there's no way to reference a flashing tool in the XML or sign an executable on LVFS. I don't think Red Hat Legal will like the idea of shipping the flashing program. We only ever talked about the firmware files themselves. Although I concede the images in the .cap file probably contain firmware executable code wrapped up in layers.
Yeah, fair enough.
He says, I also know that Red Hat security team would do more than just blink when we tell them that we want to ship an untrusted, non-free binary, which would run as root on RHEL customers' machines. So that's the snippet of the conversation that why Richard Hughes says, I don't think this is going to work for you. It's kind of, I believe, that at that point in the conversation, things just died off. System 76 is like, well, obviously this isn't going to work for us. We'll focus on what we need to focus on. They were also launching Pop! OS around this time, and they have plenty of things that they're doing. And so Carl mentions in his blog post that the update capsule mechanism that LVFS uses wouldn't work for over a decade of machines that System 76 has in the field. And without update capsule, and with update capsule as well, it wraps everything into a proprietary binary blob. Well, proprietary, just a binary blob. It wraps everything in a binary blob, so you can't really pull it apart and reverse engineer firmwares, and they don't like that aspect of it as well. Carl outlines a few other concerns in his blog post, but I kind of wanted to reach out to Carl and ask him a couple of direct questions, because there's been some that I think have been rattling around the internet that we'd like answers to. So I sent Carl an email, and he got back to me this morning, pretty promptly actually, and I asked him, I said, is one of the core problems with System 76 using LVFS is that it's not really compatible with its upstream OEM agreements that System 76 has in place with, like, say, Clevo or whoever that might be upselling the parts. Carl responds to that. System 76 has no upstream agreements limiting anything we can do to deliver firmware to our customers. This is made up. We were told in the email we posted that LVFS would technically be incompatible and would likely not be acceptable to Red Hat Legal. We needed to still provide the functionality, so we built our own tool.
Fair enough.
So he says that there isn't an agreement. There is no agreement in place that limits how they redistribute firmware, is what he said. And I said, just to clarify, if customers choose to buy a stock Ubuntu machine from System 76, not one running Pop! OS, will they still get updated? He said, correct. Any Ubuntu-based distro will work, of course. We also had customers use the update tool on Arch.
Nice. Yeah, okay.
And I said, in the future, when you're building your own systems, like your own desktops, do you intend to use LVFS at that point? And he said that their first in-house design and manufactured desktop will feature open source firmware components. So they don't need to be reverse engineered, so the update capsule thing isn't. But they'll still use their existing infrastructure and tools to distribute the firmwares when they're building their own systems. And so, I think it's pretty clear in here. This is just simply a matter of this is what works for us. It wasn't really a statement on the LVFS project. It's just not a solution that's necessarily going to work for us right now. And he would have, I think I got from my back and forth with him, he would have preferred to just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean,
I wish there was a mechanism for these different groups to communicate better. Like, it's funny, we have like all these different platforms, Twitter and email and IRC and Slack and Telegram, that everybody in our community uses pretty regularly. And yet, like, these, like...
feels like we end up talking past each other
in
way
blog
more than
posts,
we should.
in blog posts, right? And I really respect Richard, too. I think what Richard is working on is really important for a first-class Linux user experience.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to sit there and do the distro math and wonder if there's a PPA for that system. And you just know that if you get a modern system, when you go to get all your updates, you get your firmware update. I like that.
I like that, too.
And there's probably a lot of different ways System 76 could crack that particular egg. And, maybe they could deliver it that way as well. It's sort of unfortunate, though, that we end up getting these lobs thrown back and forth at each other. In another world, I almost would like to give people maybe this is something we could do. I almost would like to give people a space to just talk it out,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because you get people talking and it just everything's fine.
Let's hash it out now and then not have to keep talking about it, and we can stop covering it on the show and everyone will be happier.
Yeah, it just seems like that would be a lot nicer.
Do you think there's any, was there any in the reaction, any sort of open source community frustration just with Pop! OS or feelings about that System 76 may be motivated to do this for some of their, not appreciating forking when they don't need to?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I think that is a bit of it. I think where Richard Hughes comes in is, I saw some of his follow-up comments on Google+. He's a little disappointed because the idea here is this is sort of like the community thing to do. This is the Linux, this is like a good Linux hardware citizen thing to do, I think is the thinking. And so there was a level of disappointment on his part that System 76 wasn't interested in participating in that larger ecosystem, even if it meant sort of reinventing the wheel a bit, because some other manufacturers are redoing the way that they do all of this process too. Right. And I think that is a point you could argue. Maybe that's not necessarily true, because perhaps you could argue that LVFS is not as independent as it would need to be for that to actually happen.
It also strikes me that it's great that System 76 is taking this seriously, and maybe if a lot of other vendors had been doing this, yes, it would be a worse world where we had a whole bunch of independent Linux flashing programs. But imagine that, if for years you'd be able to easily flash firmware from whatever big name vendor. That just wasn't the world that we lived in. It's cool that it's changing now, but I can understand why they're like, guys, we've been shipping this for 10 years. We just have to support our machines.
Yeah, the machines that we already have in the field. Yeah, and fair enough. I mean, point taken. Anyone in the Mumble Room want to chime in before we move on from this story? I've sort of said my piece on it, I think. I appreciate Carl getting back to me, and I appreciate Richard's situation too.
I think there's really nothing else to add.
Okay. Let's take a moment and thank Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there and sign up for a free 7-day trial of a platform that's built to teach you more about Linux. With full-time human beings that can help you whenever you get stuck, and when you're not asking them questions, they're always improving, adding, and updating content. They have a course scheduler that works with your busy schedule and helps set learning goals and then helps you stick to those time frames. They have cloud servers that they spin up on demand when you need them as part of the courseware. You can SSH into those systems. And they're really cool. You can set the distro and the courseware matches that. And they also have practice exams and quizzes to help prepare you for certifications and tests, to make sure you really have learned what you think you've learned before you go take the big test.
Yeah.
They also have iOS and Android apps so you can study while you're going. They have lesson audio and study guides that you can download and take with you. And they have rolled out a big batch of content in the last month, and it's still coming too. It's impressive. There's so much to cover that they've been doing live streams to just try to bring everybody up to date on all of the stuff, because it's so much. It's hard to keep track of.
You don't even want to read all the stuff that they have just to offer, let alone all the actual material.
Yeah, and they're updating old stuff as well, so the old material is staying current. It's a great service, and you can try it 7 days for free. But when you go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged, go sign up for a free 7-day trial and support the show. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. I like that sound effect.
I like that too. You should keep it going.
So if I say GS Connect, does it ring a bell? Does that ring a bell at all? GS
Well, it
Connect?
does make me think of KDE Connect.
You got it, Wes. That's right. It is the GNOME shell implementation of KDE Connect.
Oh.
Yeah, without the Qt.
I'm interested.
No Qt or KDE dependencies. And KDE Connect, of course, is that awesome tool that allows you to use, basically make your Android phone a companion to your Plasma desktop, and now your GNOME desktop with JS Connect. You can share clipboards, you can get notifications moved between them, you can use a remote control. I mean, you could transfer files. There's a lot of stuff, and you got to figure it's a feature that Microsoft is eyeing. They've talked a little bit at Build about the new timeline feature in Windows 10 that requires a special launcher on Android to make it all work, where none of this is required with GS Connect. And so this random guy, Will Cook, some guy on the internet, he has proposed that Ubuntu should integrate GS Connect as part of 18.10. I think it's a great idea.
That's awesome.
And so he's put out there for conversation on the Ubuntu community portal, hub. What do we call it, Popey? Is it hub? Hub. And asked for folks to give input and has even named people that are volunteering to do some of the work. I think this would be a great and useful tool, and it'd be a nice feature on the side of the box, like they used to say.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would certainly use it.
So if you want to get in on the conversation around that, I'll have a link in the show notes. And then a little birdie dropped off a new snap.
New snap?
Right on the doorstep of the show.
What is it? I'm dying to know.
Well, you know how we're big fans of the FFmpeg project.
Oh,
here.
love it.
And you know what FFmpeg could always use a little more of? Hardware acceleration.
Always.
But you can't do that in a snap, right, Wimpy? That's not possible.
It is now.
Oh,
boy.
Dish. You got a dish.
So this is something we've had brewing for a little while. You will have heard Popey and I talking about the fact that OBS is able to use an accelerated FFmpeg that's in the Ubuntu 18.04 archive, which is terrific. So people who want NVEnc and HEVC and what have you, that's all available. But as is, common, the 18.04 release comes out. We're shipping the latest stable release of FFmpeg, and then days later, FFmpeg 4 drops. And we've now got an 18.04 release, which is never going to see that new version of FFmpeg. So what we've been working on is a snap of FFmpeg, which is FFmpeg 4, with the NVEnc and HEVC pieces enabled, so you have the hardware acceleration. We've also done the work to build in the VA API stuff, so there's a hardware accelerated encoding and decoding for Intel and AMD as well. And all of the bits that FFmpeg relies on are all built from the current versions of source parts. So the whole stack of FFmpeg is all the latest stuff inside the snap. That snap is currently classic because it's FFmpeg itself, and it sort of makes sense that maybe FFmpeg, the tool, should remain a classic snap because there's many different ways people would want to use it. But that snap's only 20 meg, so it's very small.
Wow! Yeah. I'm really excited.
I can take that anyway.
Yeah, and what we've been doing is we've figured out how to confine FFmpeg and open up access to the NVEnc socket. And what this will enable us to do is, in snaps like OBS and Kdenlive, embed the bleeding edge versions of FFmpeg with all of the acceleration turned on inside those applications, so they don't have to go looking at the host, which may have an old version. They can have the current latest versions with all of the acceleration features enabled.
Boy, that's going to be great
for them.
This is
incredible.
And they'll know exactly that everywhere that it ships will have that version of FFmpeg, which is going to be great for Kdenlive. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges for doing video editing on Linux, is that people have different parts underneath of different versions. And so you can say my Kdenlive crashes, and it comes back with, okay, what version of this and what version of that do you have? And this solves that. Okay,
yep.
So
that's available now in the stable channel. In the future, we'll be doing a bit more with the Intel and AMD acceleration, and a little project I'm interested in looking at is we've now got the capability within snaps when they're being built to make architecture decisions in the build process. So you can say, when I'm on an AMD 64 machine, do these things differently than when I'm on a ARM device. And what I'm planning to do is bring some work I did on the Raspberry Pi last year, where I made an FFmpeg that was specifically tuned for hardware accelerated encoding and decoding on the Raspberry Pi, bring that into the same snap so that when you're building on ARM HF, it automatically turns on all of those Raspberry Pi optimizations. So the same snap will be the accelerated version for the different devices.
You are doing the work of many editors out there. They are going to appreciate that very, very much. They're going to save so many folks time that would have had to figure out how to get that working individually on each one of their systems.
Right. Can you imagine the difference, like just a couple of years ago, trying to put that all together? Maybe you're manually compiling things or sketchy PPAs, and now it's just a couple of snaps.
Yep. Okay, so while we're on this subject of snaps, there's a big story floating around, huge story, massive controversy, shaking everything to its core.
So big.
There was malware found in the Snap Store, and as a response, there's been a post up on the blog.ubuntu.com talking about future steps that'll be taken to secure, to a degree, the Snap Store. And there was one bit in here that really jumped out at me. And Will Cook talked a little bit about this on the recent Late Night Linux, too. They say on the roadmap, they have an interesting security feature in the works that will improve the safety of the system and also the experience of people handling software deployments in servers and desktops. A simple but fairly effective feature that we are working on is the ability to flag specific publishers as verified.
Okay.
The details of that will be announced soon, but the basic idea is that it's easier for users to identify that the person or organization publishing that snap are who they claim to be. And so, though, would that have solved this? So what happened? So let me back up a little bit.
Yeah, lay it down.
There was a video game in the Snap Store. I think it claimed to be a version of that 2048 game everybody loves. And when you get that game, it was actually doing a little crypto mining in the background. Surprise, surprise.
Well, of course, that's what you got to do these days. So
it's an interesting use of, I guess, what you could call malware. It was really more like cryptoware, because it's in this confined snap, but it can still use your CPU resources and do mining.
Just raises your power bill.
Yeah, so it's behaving in a way that was unexpected to the user, but they could have been a verified publisher.
Right, and with the verification, does that speak at all to like the procedures? How do they keep their keys? All those sorts of things that would actually also impact that.
Yeah, maybe we'll get details on that. But that's about as much as I know. I'm sure our friends Popey or Wimpy would have more insights on this particular topic. It's been kind of interesting, but it all could have been more of a shitstorm. It's been kind of a mild shitstorm, but not that bad. So what's been the piece that people have missed?
What is the definition of a mild shitstorm?
Well, I don't know. From where I've sat, I could have seen it could have been a lot worse. But you were more at the heart of the storm, so I'm curious if you have the same impression.
So, whenever something like this happens, and I'm not talking about whenever we regularly get malware arriving. I'm talking about whenever there's a problem in Ubuntu, and we see the community reacting in some way, we all jump to it. And there are people, you can think of the Avengers around the world, all coming together in order to resolve this problem. And I know that a whole bunch of people in Canonical care very deeply about this problem and wanted to get it solved. So someone alerted us to the fact that there was an application in the store and the application did something other than what it said it did in the description. Right, that's effectively what it was. It's as simple as that. Someone said, this is a game. It's 2048 or Hextris, or there was actually half a dozen, 4 or 5 applications from the same author, and they all did the same thing. They were, in inverted commas, masquerading as one thing, but doing something else. They weren't stealing data. They weren't like grabbing data off your machine and sending it off to some third party. They were basically using your CPU in order to mine some kind of cryptocurrency. And at the point when we found out about this, I think it was early on a Saturday morning, the weekend just gone, and I was standing in a field watching my son play football. I know Martin was in the middle of a forest with his family. Other people were spending time with their families on a Saturday morning, and everyone jumped to it. Telegram lit up, IRC channels lit up. We all jumped on it. We all pinged all the right people, phoned the emergency numbers, and made sure that those applications were yanked from the store as soon as possible. So we did exactly the right thing as soon as we were alerted, or as soon as we figured out that there was something wrong. We pulled these apps from the stores and then started a plan of investigation and debugging what the applications were actually doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and we can plan for the future to make sure that people are more aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and so do you think this verified program would have fixed this particular problem, since he did have a few other apps in the store? He may have been considered verified at that point, no?
Well, there is no verified program at the moment. So right, yes. I couldn't possibly say if it would or wouldn't fix it, because I don't know what form that verified program will take. Okay. We've discussed this a number of times at Canonical, and it was most recently raised a couple of weeks ago. The Snap team were at a sprint recently, and it's a hard problem to solve. It's not straightforward. even if you have someone who is, whether they are verified or they're not, it's not a magic bullet that stops someone from doing something nefarious.
Sure,
right?
Yeah, right.
You have to be able to keep an eye on these things, monitor what's going on, and react fast when things do go wrong. Like if you look at any of the other app stores, Windows Mobile App Store, iOS App Store, Mac App Store, Windows Desktop App Store, Android App Store, they've all had some kind of occasion that something has been put in the store that users might feel aggrieved at in one way or another, whether it's too many pop-up adverts or crypto mining or something else. Everyone's had this. It's a rite of passage for any app store, really, and we've hit that now. And we're going to have to come up with ways in which we can ensure that users have confidence that the applications that are coming from the developers, they can have some level of confidence that that's a valid application. One thing that we're trying to do with the Snap Store is not that you should trust us, Canonical or Ubuntu, is that you should trust the developer. It's the developer who's pushing their stuff in the store. The code is coming from their GitHub repository. You should be able to go and have a look at their GitHub repository. You should be able to interrogate the Snap and figure out, where did this come from? Who made it? What's inside it? Right? You should be confident that the thing you're installing on your computer is what it says it is. And we've got some work to do there, because right now we don't make it obvious where the source of the Snap came from. So there's certainly some things we can do to improve. Maybe verification will help as well.
Yeah, it obviously will be a process I'm curious to see when the details come out.
Congrats on being a real software store now.
Yeah, it is a challenge, especially if you're going to allow submissions from the general public, which you can kind of offset to a degree by the fact that they are confined, I guess I should say.
Right. And the other thing is, it's worth noting that when we reacted really fast, like faster than most stores react. So when we were told within a couple of hours it's yanked from the store, so no new users could download that application. What we also did was made sure that any users who currently had the application, we pushed out an update to those users that removed the component that's still in progress, that removes the component that does the nefarious stuff. So they end up with the game and not the malware that came along with it. So we didn't just leave that software on people's computers, but equally we didn't reach out to everyone's computers and delete the software from their computers. It's a fine line to walk between saying, well, you made the choice to install this software, tough, and the Amazon way, which was to reach out to people's Kindles and delete a book from your Kindle, right?
Yeah.
We didn't want to do that. We wanted to leave the software but remove the bit that was bad. So it was a very delicate line and balance to walk.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I'm glad you mentioned that. So now we wait for the details down the road. I appreciate that little tidbit about verified. I think that is a good idea.
I mean, and it shows that these are concerns, right? That take it seriously, and that goes a long way.
Some of the developers that have applications in the store, we have one-to-one relationships with. So some of the applications, like those which are classic snaps, like many of the popular code editors, and things like Skype. People are a little bit concerned that they're classic snaps. Being a classic snap, it means it has full access to your system, right? Mm-hmm. Very much like a deb does when it's being installed. And so people have a little concern there. And we go through a vetting process for classic snaps where we vet the developer who has access to the snap and make sure it correlates to the upstream developer who owns the application.
So there's additional scrutiny applied to classic snaps?
We already do that scrutiny for classic snaps. And perhaps that will be part of what we do for our further verification processes. Sure. But like I say, we haven't figured out the details of that yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that insights, because it's very interesting to hear the behind the scenes aspect of watching it from the outside. Of course, people jumped on the bandwagon, but you're right. It is almost a rite of passage to a degree, and it's not necessarily even a new type of threat vector. We've had rando repositories that people have been adding to their sources list for years, PPAs that you plug into a system.
I think there's always just going to be this conflict, right? It's either you have a super lockdown store where you don't have all the apps you want, or it's easy to publish new software and it's great, and there are just more risks.
Yeah, and the verified step and perhaps others will help. All right. Well, I want to move on to our friends over at the Plasma Camp, who were doing a little get-together in Berlin, Germany, and some of the folks there gathered to discuss the forthcoming 5.13 release and, of course, the future of Plasma and Wayland itself, but this time with a twist. One of the members of the Sway window manager team joined them to talk Wayland input methods and a bunch of other things. It looks like there was some really fruitful stuff coming out of this. Drew DeVault, the lead developer of the Sway window manager, joined the Plasma Sprint to discuss where Wayland protocols could be shared between the projects.
Wow.
Right? Brilliant. The team looked at their layer protocol, which covers much of the work the current Plasma Shell protocol. We found that this protocol contains some nice ideas and suggested some improvements for the Sway window manager developers as well. The Plasma output management protocol was also discussed. Now, get this thing. This protocol defines how external monitors are used, and Sway currently just reloads config files. So the Sway team is going to consider using the Plasma output management protocol so the two projects are using the same thing for external monitors.
That would be nice.
This alleviates some of my big concerns I have about the path to Wayland, and I'm really glad to see this. There was also some talks about remote access and using Pipewire, because that's the route the Plasma
Right, this is
taking.
exactly the thing that we were like, well, probably we'll need this in Wayland, and it's happening, so that's good.
Is really good. They also had some new work on the new input stack for Qt, because there's a bunch of other developers there as well. And Sean, I think I'm going to butcher this. Rutledge, going to go for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think
ballpark?
I think this time you got it right.
Yeah, well, he's the lead developer of Qt's new input stack, and he joined the sprint for a few days to work on and review the new API. And this is really all about putting Wayland first. And they said they got some nice parts in that were improved, and things went surprisingly smooth. And the Plasma browser integration got final touches for 5.13, which will be released next month. Now, the Plasma browser integration means that Firefox and Chrome and Chromium browsers will use Plasma's file transfer widget for downloads and the native Plasma notifications for browser notifications. And more importantly for me, the media controls in your task manager will work for browser tabs and stuff, so you can mute.
Love that Plasma manager.
It's nice. So lots of stuff there. Translations as well getting fixed up, other kinds of things, and some work on the Falcon web browser and getting it feature parity in terms of Plasma integration like the other browsers. So some good stuff coming out of the Plasma Sprint in Berlin. It's nice to see that. Huge fan now these days. I'm all about it. I've just really become quite the Plasma fan.
You're biased, we know.
I really am. It's been working so rock solid for me.
I appreciate your restraint. You only put in this one story here. That takes a lot of self-control.
I'm going to get you to switch eventually. Popey and I, we're still rocking it. We're still rocking it, right? Yeah, Popey, you're still there, yes?
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
All day, every day.
Oh, really?
Boom!
Really?
Yeah.
It's an almost believable yeah.
Okay, so I have two computers. My main computer runs Unity on 1804, but the laptop that I go walking around with, my T450, that runs KDE Neon. I have to point out, still the same install I did just after I came back from your place, and it's still rocking. I love it. I
don't want to steal his story because he might share it on air, but Noah has a hilarious story that is a true tribute to how stable KDE Neon was for him. Long story short, he never rebooted since the initial install. He'd just been using it and sleeping his laptop, which bit him in the arse in a major way, but I'll leave it to him because it's too funny of a story for me to share for him. I won't take it from him, but it's a good one, and it's been the same thing for him. Super rock solid. We're still running on all of the studio systems here, so it's great to just see the team getting together in person to put that final polish on 5.13. I think that really makes a big difference for some of these teams, so it's nice to see them have a chance to be able to do that. We have much more to get into, still lots to discuss. So let's take a moment and thank DigitalOcean. Go to co.do No, oh my gosh.
What is this, Java?
I don't know. Here, let me get this right.
Try that again.
Yeah,
One more
let's
time.
try that
One
again.
more time.
Let's try that again. So let's take a moment and thank DigitalOcean. Go to do.co/unplugged, where you will get a $100 credit at DigitalOcean when you sign up with a new account. That lasts for 60 days and gives you a chance to try out DigitalOcean. Everything's based on super fast enterprise-grade SSDs. It's designed for developers, but it works for human beings. They have a dashboard that's so good, you might call it a dashboard for days. And now they have new flexible droplets where you can mix and match resources that are the most appropriate for your application. do.co/unplugged. They have private networking if you want to have something in the back end like a database or a cache. They have block storage that you can add to your system as you need it. I just put 250 gigs on.
Oh, big spender, but not really.
Not that bad.
It's pretty reasonably priced for what you get.
Yeah, so for an example, my favorite rig, 3 cents an hour.
What?
Yeah, and that's a significantly fast rig, too. It's probably more resources than I really need most of the time. And you can get a $100 credit when you go to do.co/unplugged. They have a great API that's clearly documented, easy to follow, and because of that, there's tons of really good open source code already written. You can integrate it into your Linux desktop, like control your droplets. You can get apps for your phone. You can get command line scripts. You can get libraries for your favorite programming language. I mean, the whole spectrum is covered for DigitalOcean. Plus, they have a ton of great distributions. All of the real distributions you'd probably want to put on a server to begin with, plus that free BSD.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So go check it out, do.co/unplugged. Get the $100 credit, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Unplugged program, do.co/unplugged. So with the release of 1804, we've seen a disappointing trend of clickbait to try to make, or manufacture, you might say, some drama around the, quote, data collection services in Ubuntu 1804. And even the name is sort of it's sort of over dramatizing what this is. If you install Ubuntu 1804, at the end there's a screen that comes up that says what's new in Ubuntu. And at the end of that screen, it talks about data collection, and it shows you an example of the data collection. We're going to go over one of those reports in a moment, but I've noticed a trend, particularly with YouTube, and I hate to come on here and be like, oh, Chris yells at YouTube once again.
Old man Chris is back.
But it's pretty disappointing because it plays to a well-trained sort of knee-jerk response that's in the audience to respond badly to anything about data collection. Because of all of the Facebook stuff, all of the Google stuff that we all know, NSA collection, since Edward Snowden,
It's been years now.
We've had it drilled into us that everybody's spying on us. Windows 10 launched with all these metrics. It's just been drilled into us that spying equals bad, data equals bad. But the reality is, if you're deploying a large-scale operating system, you have to have some insights into your customer base. You have to.
You want that feedback cycle, yeah.
And so there's a line to be walked here. And I think Canonical has walked it really well because they could have gone further than they did. Essentially, what happens when you opt into this data collection is you generate a report about your system. And I'll have an example report linked in the show notes. And what it does is it collects things like the version of Ubuntu that you just installed, the type of processor that you have, the type of GPU with the vendor and model number, just like they would be in an Xorg report. Nothing fancy. It's not like it's a super in-depth thing here. Your screen resolution, if you have live patch or autolog turned on, the desktop environment, and if you're using Wayland or X. Then your time zone, the media that you use to install it, like the ISO, if you use the minimal install, and that's essentially it. There's a couple of other basics in here, like did you download updates during the install? That's the data that gets sent.
It's really quite harmless.
And also, if you choose not to participate in the data collection, there is a one-time ping. All of this is just a JSON file in clear text that you can read yourself. You can just open it up and read it, and it's clear. And there's a one-time ping that's sent to Canonical that says user did not opt into data collection. There's no IP, no identifiable information. Will Cook stated they don't even store the IP address of the HTTP connection in the Apache
on the server
logs.
side. Yeah,
right. It's just they opted out, so that way they have a metric to know how many people are choosing not to use this program, so they can have an idea of how unpopular.
Yeah, exactly. So you know how many total installs are happening.
But that doesn't stop people from attempting to generate controversy because that generates clicks and views and ad dollars. And if you look at the comments on a couple of these different YouTube videos, people are all in on this stuff. They're all in on it because they are just looking at that word data collection and they're freaking out. And the problem is that it actually handicaps Canonical's ability to really figure out what's popular. Like, for example, 64-bit versus 32-bit. How many of their users are actually using 32-bit processors, or how many of them are installing a 32-bit version of the OS on 64-bit capable hardware?
Yeah.
That simple plain text data file tells them that. That's a pretty valuable piece of information that could save them tons of engineering time.
Well, and also it can be very difficult to get that feedback other ways. You often see, right, that minority communities they're going to communicate a lot more, and it's hard to get a sense of just what a lot of bland default users who don't care to give feedback to Canonical. This is a way that they can be sampled in that user base.
Producer Michael responded on one of the videos. He said, I completely disagree with this video being made because none of the collection is a negative thing. The initial data collection of Ubuntu report, it's Ubuntu dash report, by the way, when you choose not to send info, only sends that you chose not to send info. The removal of the package merely to not tell them actually skews the data because it lowers the amount of people who will be continued and counted as not participating. See, these videos are advising uninstall this package so that way you don't have anything ever sent to them. Never even a ping.
Wow.
But the problem is then Canonical has no metric to know how unpopular this is.
Right.
So producer Michael goes on. If you wanted them to know you dislike it, then you have to send them the info that you opted out. They have to have that information. The reason it was made automatic and opt out is because most people dismiss the pop-ups and close it anyways. The other aspect is there's some bug data collection that'll automatically get sent to the background that does contain more information, but again, that's critical information that every commercial desktop operating system is collecting. And that's really my piece on this, is I think this is actually an example of how open source media can be, or free software coverage, or whatever label you want to apply to it, can actually be destructive to the movement because it creates fear and uncertainty and doubt about something that is very vanilla and very clear. You actually, when you finish the first time run wizard of 1804, you can click a button and it will show you what it's going to send. So you can review all of it.
We also kind of waste an opportunity to, interact with the developers, with the organizations in the community, right? I mean, Ubuntu, I think, has been very clear about what their purposes were. There was a long period of assessment before this feature got included. So you don't have to pretend it's some monolithic corporation. It's not Oracle we're talking about where you have to assume the worst. Why can't we have a good faith discussion about this? Maybe people don't like it for legitimate reasons. Let's not start it from a bunch of posturing videos that haven't bothered to have a conversation.
And Gambus, do you think it's also something that software developers have more appreciation for than, say, an average user?
Yeah, I mean, I've been developing some applications for Linux desktop, and they are quite specific. And many times it happened that people just reported, "Oh, this thing doesn't work, and I don't know what's going on." And I just tried troubleshooting and spent many hours trying to get information about the hardware. When if I just added in some user profiling, well, not user profiling, but some information that's useful for developers, just like Canonical is doing, I would have had a much easier life trying to troubleshoot all these issues. And I think this is the same thing for Ubuntu. I mean, they have to make a distribution that works on such a great variety of hardware. And I can only imagine how difficult it can be to fix so many possible and potential bugs without knowing anything about the systems that those bugs are on. I mean, the typical problem that works on my machine and nobody else's.
Yeah, it's hard to fully appreciate it from the support standpoint, and how do you make decisions and how do you design your software when you have zero visibility into your user base. And if you want to see what the information actually is, if you're on 1804 right now, you can run Ubuntu-report show, and it will generate the report that gets sent. So you can review it and see how benign this is. Wimpy, were you going to jump in with something there?
I was. There's a couple of issues I have with this particular video. The first is, everything about it is technically inaccurate. So it's got a wonderful clickbaity title, but the first thing it explains to do is remove the Ubuntu report package, which is actually the wrong package to remove because that isn't the package that the GNOME First Run Wizard interacts with. And you actually see this.
Wow.
You actually see this in the video that he clicks no and it generates the opt-out report, and he sort of skips over it a little bit. So it's removing the wrong package. He also suggests that you remove popularity contest, which is also known as PopCon. Now, that's installed by default, but it's not enabled by default. And sending a telemetry report doesn't enable PopCon. PopCon is installed by default, not enabled, and we have no plans to turn it on. So in suggesting that you remove Ubuntu report and popularity content because these are the things that collect data, that also removes the Ubuntu standard meta package. And what that does is breaks your upgrade path from 1804 to any subsequent version of Ubuntu. So if you follow the instructions in this video, one, it doesn't actually change the behavior of the First Run Wizard, and two, it breaks your ability to upgrade in the future.
Wow.
Great news. Just great.
That is damaging in a way that I hadn't even touched on before, is that a lot of times these videos are poorly researched and kind of thrown together because you need to capitalize on something while it's very popular in order to generate.
There's no time for research, Chris.
YouTube has this term that they tell you to score for called VPH, which stands for views per hour. And you want to optimize your VPH so that way it juices the algorithm and puts you in front of subscribers. And the way you do that is by producing a video on something that's trending at the moment, that's popular amongst your audience at the moment. And so that is a long way of saying you are incentivized to rush content on YouTube.
Yeah, but you see, and that's damaging as well, right? Because YouTubers are being incentivized to produce content quickly, which could be fine in some respects. But the 17 pence extra a month that this particular video is going to generate, which is trading off besmirching Ubuntu's reputation with a technically inaccurate, bit of video tutorial, that is poisoning the well. It doesn't help anybody. You see all of these comments. They see data collection. They assume this is like, the kind of invasive stuff that's in Windows 10.
Literally, that's in the comments several times. Yeah.
And they make all the wrong assumptions. And there is nothing in the words that are used in the video or the title to suggest otherwise.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I don't know. I think it's something that...
And the source code's available.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, if you want to research this, you just go and look at the source code and see how it works.
Just look at the report too.
What I find frustrating is that Martin alluded to the fact that if you do something, there are some things that it's possible to do to Ubuntu that many new users follow blindly a tutorial that breaks their experience 6 months down the line when they come to upgrade to the next point release, or if they're more conservative, they upgrade to the next LTS release. And the problem is people don't remember in 6 months' time, they won't remember that a thing they did 6 months ago is the reason why they can no longer upgrade. We get it in the neck, definitely. And people say Ubuntu upgrades don't work. They do if you don't screw your system in the first place, right? But the problem is you screwed your system 6 months ago and you've long forgotten any terminal command that some random dude on YouTube told you to put in. You thought it was a good idea at the time because that's what he told you. 6 months later, you're in our IRC channel or on our support network asking us, why is my system broken? I've upgraded and I've got a black screen, or it won't upgrade, or it crashes, or whatever. And we're like, well, that thing you did 6 months ago. No, it's you. You're the reason all this stuff is broken. It's Ubuntu's fault. And that's a really bitter pill to swallow, because we try really hard to make these upgrades work. But if people actively shoot themselves in the foot, it's really hard to undo that. And that's really painful 6 months, 2 years down the line.
And I guess go ahead.
Some behind the scenes, if you do remove the Ubuntu standard package, which people have done for different reasons in error, there are some heuristics in the upgrade manager that try to figure out what version of Ubuntu did you have installed before it got gutted to try and piece together what it should do to repair the situation? But it's a best guess, because you can do so much to your system to mess with it. And this kind of thing, removing the base meta package, is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I hadn't watched more than a few minutes into the video where I started to read the comments, and I got really frustrated because two things. It plays on the paranoia of a technically savvy audience about metrics, and it builds perhaps momentum against future projects that might want to do something similar. And I would argue that is a bad thing, because I would make an argument that these metrics are benign and that they are beneficial, and then they are much more beneficial than they are in any way benign in a sense that they could track you or that they would be identifiable. The thing is you really have to appreciate how much insight they're able to gain just out of knowing the types of processors, the Windows server, and desktop environments. That can significantly give a company like Canonical important information so they know where to focus development resources. And they're competing against commercial operating systems that are doing 10 times the level of data collection.
Right. And then on the other side, right, you end up with complaints about why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? How come we can't compete? And so it's just a no-win game in that world.
At the beginning of this episode, we talked about the GNOME project removing the ability to run binary files. Imagine, and I'm not suggesting that this would be a good world, but let's imagine that the GNOME project did have telemetry on how people used GNOME Shell. And let's say they had telemetry that showed that 75% of their users at least once a day launched a binary file from their file manager. They may not be considering removing that functionality, but they have no data. They have no insights other than their gut intuition and what they grok from the drive-by feedback that they get.
So I have no, and I think most people in Ubuntu have no problem with the fact that people might want to tick the no box and say, no, I don't want to do this, right?
Yeah, have at
it. And it's an individual decision that someone might say, you know what, I don't care, and I actually value my own personal privacy so much that I don't want to even tell you what resolution display I had when I installed the software product that I got for you for free, right? I don't want to tell you that. Okay, fine. But that's another step to then make a video to tell the whole world not to do that as well. That's what gets me, because when you socialize that whole don't allow Canonical to have any kind of data in order to plan what they're doing in the future, and then we plan things and you say, well, what the fuck were Canonical thinking? Why were they doing those things? Why did they focus on laptops with 1366 by 768 displays? Well, because that's the only data we have, right? That's all we know. And if we don't know what type of displays there are out there, what types of CPUs are there, we can't make educated decisions. And if everyone is told to turn this shit off, what the fuck are we going to do?
I agree. And it's gonna scare other projects away from something similar. And the thing that is unfortunate is this was pretty well implemented, I really have to say. The real cherry on the top was at the end where you could see the report, or the fact that you could show yourself the report at any time. You can see in a plain text file what's being sent.
Simple, transparent.
And it's all clearly documented about what from the bug reports get sent and all of that telemetry. So, even when it was done, I think probably the most open and transparent way possible, including the very source code that powers all of this is open. I just don't know. It's obvious that the core issue here is that there is a financial incentive or a even ego incentive for different outlets to try to make hay on this. There's a lot of stories that just get blown out of proportion, and this is just another one of them. So I've made this point before. I won't make it again. But thanks, you guys, for your thoughts on that, and just be aware of it. Even if you don't want to opt into data collection, just be aware of the impact this kind of stuff has, because I think you're completely, like Popey said, you're 100% within your right to not send any data. I think it's pretty nice though to send them the I'm opting out, so that way they get a signal, so you can essentially have a vote still. I think that's something to consider. All right, I want to just also talk about, really briefly, a little follow-up on the reverse engineering at Purism for some of Intel's FSP stuff that disappeared off the internet all of a sudden.
Whoa.
Yeah, there was a blog post that went up describing the in-depth technical process that they went through recently to reverse engineer some of this Intel crap. And we noticed on LAN that it disappeared. And so we made a comment on Linux Action News that perhaps they had been contacted by Intel. Yeah, it looks like that was the case. It looks like Intel politely asked Purism to remove their document because they thought it might conflict with licensing terms, i.e. if you want to buy processors from us in the future, you'll be taking that down.
It's a pretty big fist to say no to.
Yeah, and so they complied. However, the internet never forgets, as you well know, and Chris somehow found a copy in archive.org.
You demon, you.
So if you want to read this extremely in-depth technical document, I'll have a link in the show notes, linuxunplugged.com/249 to archive.org. Wes, I almost think we should save this Docker story for another day.
It deserves probably better discussion.
Yeah. I'll just quickly, last week I made a comment at the end of the show. I think nobody's going to like this episode because we talked about containers too much. And I got a couple of emails that were like, I actually really enjoyed that because nobody else is really talking about that. And it's a huge part of my life these days. And it's a huge part of where software is going. So I feel like people have their heads in the sand. And then other emails were like, it's new to me and I'm learning. So it was interesting to hear what you could do with it. Nobody really emailed in saying they hated it, but I assume some people do get tired of us talking about magical ponies and container technologies. So I'm going to save why Docker is dangerous, and it's a gamble that you will regret for a future episode. But it's out there. We'll be talking more about it in the future because there is still that question that I want to get to before we wrap up. I want to ask the Mumble Room and Wes if it's time to move on from the all GTK or all cute mentality. So let's start first by thanking Ting. I'm taking them to Texas with me. This show is going to be broadcasted over Ting all the way down to Tejas, and it's perfect. It's pay for what you use wireless. So I've got a little MiFi for CDMA, and I got a little MiFi for GSM because Ting has both networks. And I let them sit around for a little bit, boss level. It's $6 for the line.
So you don't care? Honey badger.
And you can actually, you could just deactivate the device if you weren't going to use it for 6 months and then just order up a SIM and pop it in and good to go again. That's actually what I've done. And it's great because then I've got CDMA and GSM with me as I go, and I just pay for the usage. So whenever I'm parked somewhere that has Wi-Fi, which I always shoot for, then I'm not paying anything for data. It's like I'm just getting by for free. It's nationwide coverage with no contracts. It's just $6 for the line, and you pay for what you use, your minutes, your messages, and your megabytes. There's a control panel you can log into to always check your minutes and your messages and your data usage. And you can always take total control, turn stuff on and off, activate and deactivate devices. You can set usage alerts. If I ever get tucked into giving my kids a phone, I'm going to start using those usage alerts. Dylan, stop it. Too much.
Get off them internets.
And they got lots of devices, including the new Moto devices. Got the modules. Have you seen that where you can snap on like, new camera or battery and stuff? They're selling that now, or you can bring your device and they'll give you a $25 service credit.
Love it.
Might just pay for more than your first month. So go check it out. Linux.ting.com. That's linux.ting.com. I just noticed there's a TechSnap logo there.
I did. I noticed that too.
That threw me off a little bit. I'm like, am I doing the TechSnap show?
But no. Don't worry, you still get to type
Linux.ting.com. And maybe go see the old TechSnap logo. It's kind of retro.
Woo.
I made that logo.
Look at you.
Yeah, you can tell too.
Professional.
You can tell I made that logo.
We got a new one.
Yeah, the new logo is done by a pro. Okay, so this was a question that popped up on the dumpster fire known as R Linux, and it was asking, is this mentality still relevant today, the all GTK or all Qt mentality? I ask this because I've seen people arguing about this online. He says nowadays there's a lot of disk space, so usually having two GUI frameworks installed really doesn't make a big difference on disk usage. And he says there's also people who use GTK apps when using a GTK desktop and Qt apps when using a Qt desktop, and they only use those apps. And I actually will admit to when I switched back to Plasma again, I tried to just try to do Qt everything, and when I couldn't find like a good Qt Twitter client, I just didn't even bother getting it. I just used the website now.
Yeah, sure.
Or I was using Corebird on GNOME.
Or some curses UI you found.
That would be great. So I admit I actually do kind of try to skew all Qt now.
Wow.
Back in QO notes and stuff like that. Yeah, I admit I've done this a little bit.
What do you think you get out of it?
Well,
do you like it?
Feel
clean?
There's small things that I appreciate, small consistency things like in my open and close or open and save dialogues, like my favorites and my bookmarks, are different between my GTK and Qt dialog open and close boxes, and that's always frustrating because I'll be like working in Qt apps all day, and so I'll have like a new bookmark in there, and then I go into a GTK app, and I got to browse the file system like an animal. It's so slow, you know, and that stuff is kind of frustrating. So that makes me kind of prefer that. And then you get other bennies usually, like the Plasma notification integration or KIO slave stuff. And there's just things that are with the Qt apps that I just like to have.
Better integration, sort of a first-class feel.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. You're on the GNOME side of things. You don't seem to like shy away from a Qt app though.
No, that's fine. I don't have a ton of Qt apps,
you
but
kind
I
of
don't
have a
really
mixed family desktop, don't you?
A little bit, yeah. But I don't. Yeah, I don't. I guess I can see why you might want to do it. I can appreciate a little of the software purism, but I'm not.
The theming looks a little better. Oh, that's gotten a lot better these days.
I guess it depends on if it's a program that's easily replaced, then sure. You know, maybe you'll find a new program that you love. That's one of the great things about being a Linux open source enthusiast, right? Is you have so many choices.
I'll tell you, I've taken this far enough that I've given Kmail several goes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And, you know, I like Kmail in its own way. I like it. It's in its own esoteric, unique way. I like it. But when I started...
Chris?
Yeah.
Snap install Mailspring.
Oh,
that's just what I ended up going back to Mailspring.
Nice.
Yeah, I did. And it's the Snap, too. I Snap installed Mailspring. And it's just better. But it's like this hybrid app. It's not a Qt app either.
Clearly, you've been thinking about it,
and
though.
That bugs me. Yeah, it is something that crosses my mind. What about you guys in the Mumble Room? Anybody want to admit if they're a Qt or GTK purist?
I'm not.
You're not?
A purist, no. So I use what is the best tool for the job. So, for example, I use QO Notes as well. That's a Qt application, but it's the best that's available. I use the Shotcut Video Editor and OBS, and they're both Qt applications. And I use too. VLC Video Player, and that's a Qt application.
Same.
So yeah, I use what's best.
Yeah, when you install Mailspring, by the way, little pro tip: if you snap install Mailspring on the Plasma desktop, you also have to install GNOME Keyring in the background because it will not run without that.
I have two machines. One is mostly with the approach of let's try to use everything GNOME. And the other machine, it's the one I develop in. That one, of course, is full of everything.
Yeah. Interesting. So why do you have the one that's all pure? Is that, in an ideal world, your preferred setup?
Just generally, I would like to see the project. I started with GNOME, essentially. And I'd like to see the project to be able to be self-sufficient in all of its toolings. There's no better way to try the flow. I also am a very big fan of default, so I don't tend to use things that by default are not the way I tend to like the most. I really don't like fiddling around. In the beginning, that was exciting. No longer, just no time for that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's how I kind of see it. It's just let's try to reduce the foreign aspects and have the experience. And if the experience is not it, try find something else. Generally, that's how I go. And something else might mean the whole new package.
Bobby, were you going to say something? Were you going to chime in there?
Yeah, I don't care what toolkit an application has. Looking down my launcher, I've things that I'm running right now: Firefox, Telegram, GNOME Terminal, Steam, Slack, IRC Cloud, Visual Studio, ZenKit, VirtualBox, Discord, Signal, and Mumble.
Yeah.
Don't care. They all are so if I want to talk to you, I use Mumble on this show right now. I'm not going to go out there and say I can't use Mumble because it's cute and I've got a GTK desktop. That's just lunacy, right? I'm using the application that I need to get the job done. And so I installed the right application for the job.
But that's not what I'm advocating. I'm just saying
I didn't say you did.
There's a preferential path that I have, and then of course you do one or other exception. But I think that for having that cohesive experience, you do in the beginning go through, oh, maybe there's a lack of this. And again, I have two machines and I develop stuff, and it's also one way of seeing, oh, there's a potential target here to develop.
and I can see like how someone might want to dive fully into the elementary experience and only use elementary applications designed, written in Vala, delivered in the elementary app store, and designed specifically for that environment. And I can see why you might do that. But I'd be pretty sure after a short while, you'd feel like you're missing out on something. And there's a couple of applications you really need, and there's someone you need to talk to, or there's some application you need access to, or some data you need access to, that you need to install something that breaks outside of that, amazing though it is, Vala boundary, and into Qt or GTK or whatever.
Yeah, it does seem inevitable from that perspective. I might want a new user to start out in a consistent world, and then you sort of eventually learn about the realities of the world that we live in, and okay, it's a little more complicated than the real world.
Get the work done.
I do admit to one unique constraint I do usually tend to put myself is to not install apps I cannot maintain myself in case doomsday. So that is actually also part of how I decide. Some apps I really like, but for example, they're in Go. So I'm never going to use them because I really hate that language as an example. And so I'm not going to be willing to maintain it in Go. I try to find alternatives or just put the effort in so that it happens in another language that I feel it's the best way.
I love your doomsday scenario is not, I need to find food and drink, but I need to be able to code applications that I'm using on my laptop.
Well, you have to maintain, right? You, like, what's the point of having source code if one day things shut down and you can't fix it?
The bunker is going to have computers, obviously. They got to keep running.
Silly me. Yes.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with all of that. Mostly, you got to have the best tool for the job, and that's always the way I'll land. Even if it's a GDI application running via Wine, I'll use it if that's what I have to use. But if there is any kind of thing that sort of tilts the preference dial, it would be if I could also get it in whatever the native toolkit of my desktop is.
Well, I think that's what Architect in the IRC sums it up perfectly. Use the least offensive tool for the job.
Yeah, that's very well put. Yeah, okay. I'd love to know your thoughts too. Let us know, linuxunplugged.com/contact, where you can send in questions to the show, or if you are a Qt or GTK purist. There have been times, especially when using GNOME 3 shell, I'm like, yeah, I am tempted. Client-side decorations all the places.
Forever.
Yeah. But let us know. Let us know how you feel about it. If you want to join our Mumble Room, we do have a setup guide that you can follow.
Yeah.
If you just go Google Jupiter Colony Mumble Setup Guide, guess what? You'll pretty much find it. It's pretty much all it takes right there. You can follow Wes on the Twitter. He's at Wes Payne. You can go get more Popey and Wimpy in the Fantastic Ubuntu podcast. New episode just came out, and you can find out how many laptops each of them have.
Oh, boy.
Also, Wes and I just did a breakdown of eFail on TechSnap. All of the technical details, all of those goodies in this week's episode of TechSnap. If you want to know more about eFail, what's going on with GNU PG and OpenPGP, and what the real details are, what the real deets are, it's all in that episode.
All them dudes.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Unplugged program. And guess what? We're going to see you right back here next Tuesday!
I've never installed GNU/Linux.
Roof. Guard dogs on the Unplugged job.
They don't want the show to end.
No. They
Keep
love
it
the
going!
They love the Unplugged program. Mumble Room, thanks you guys. It was a great conversation and a bunch of stories that you had some good insights on, so I really appreciate you making it today. You're wonderful. You're gosh darn wonderful. Now, we got to name this thing, and the JBot's still down because, long story short, it was...
JBot's down again?
Yeah, well, you know that Archbox is falling apart, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I got TCP IP
No
up.
way.
I know. Well, it didn't get updated for a couple of years. So I got the TCP stack working again, and I got SSH up and running
Well, those
again.
are luxuries.
But I still can't get JBot to properly function.
Oh.
But the OS is actually standing again. I don't know how
Okay,
I did it, like
okay,
a miner
good.
through the DigitalOcean console, chipping away at all of the cruft. Literally, so what happened was...
Praise be to that console.
The system hadn't been updated for a couple of years because it's been a while since DigitalOcean let you deploy Arch.
Yes, it
on
has.
And so,
like years.
Yeah, and it got locked to an old kernel and all the... Anyways, long story short, they had to reboot for Meltdown Inspector. And when it rebooted... it didn't really ever come back up quite right. And so I went in there and sort of salvaged the system and got it standing again. We figured out like we had to like SU to Rikai's account.
Yep.
So we got like the little esoteric, like what weird user situation we had to be in and where the scripts were to start everything. Figured all that out, and it connects up and it just generates errors. So we don't have it long. That's my long way of saying we don't have JBot to do title suggestions. We have to just come up with it on our own.
So much pressure.
You can throw it in the chat room though. I saw Fudbuntu. I kind of don't like that though because it sounds like a guard dog. It sounds like a flavor, so I kind of don't like that. So other title suggestions would be appreciated. I also wanted to point out a documentary by DW. Which, somebody remind me, DW, are they out of Germany, I believe? But I'm drawing a blank. They just did a video called The Microsoft Cyber Attack. And the premise is a little weh, but they go to Munich. And during all the transition stuff, and they talk about how Microsoft lobbied to make some of this transition from LibreOffice back to Microsoft software. And they cover also a French government transition to Linux. There is some rando shots of consultants using Unity, like at the 27-minute mark. There's a consultant that they're doing an interview with, and she's using Unity on it looks like an XPS, and she's using the touchscreen to scroll a document that she's showing the journalist. So I'll have a link to that in the show notes if you want to check it out. The Microsoft Cyber Attack, though, if you just Google it on YouTube, and it's in English. They've done translations.
Nice.
So.
Great.
Yeah, it was a really cool documentary. I didn't think the premise started a little like too newbie. You know, I was like, this is thick. But then they got into like the Linux and Linux stuff, and then I was all in, which happens about halfway into it. All right, we got to name this thing, Wes.
We do. What did we talk about? Oh, all the things. That'll make it easy.
Something like fight the clickbait or something.
What happens if you just what if you leave it untitled and then downstream has to pick?
Clickbait.
Clickbait? That's not bad.
No, clickbait.
Oh, clickbait. Clickbait.
Double click to open? No.
Oh, destructive clickbait. I don't think people are going to be all that interested in that.
True.
What we should probably call it is malware attacks the Snap Store. That's probably what and people will click.
Uninstall all snaps.
Yeah, remove Snap from your system.
Security's a Snap.
Shit. Why is it always hard to do this?
Can we just steal the title of that YouTube video? How to disable data collection services in Ubuntu 18.04.
Probably trend very well.
Yeah. Gotta get that VPH. Let's see. Come on. There's enough smart guys here in the room. We can figure this out.
Linux desktop purity.
Playing to your emotions. Prying on your paranoia. Something around trying to be intentionally, obviously funny clickbait's also not bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, yeah. Oh my God, they did what to Linus? No.
Top 10 tricks for making Linux FUD.
Oh
titles.
yeah, top five ways to disable Ubuntu data collection. That'd be better.
Yeah, it would be better.
You won't believe what they did to the Snap Store.
Oh my gosh, that's good. It's so long too.
Sorry, but that's the sort of title that everyone clicks on.
True.
That is.
Would you click on it?
I would. That's funny. Topic 3 will shock you. That's pretty good too.
That is pretty good. I don't even know what topic 3 was.
I know.
So I'll be shocked too.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Fudge. I gotta say fudge because that Us Know show is starting soon.
Fudge brownies.
They're on the radio.
Yeah, true.
So, you won't believe what Ubuntu does next.
Or what Ubuntu does with your data. Can't have the gravity voice in there.
Yeah. In a world. What we need
You won't believe what the Snap Store looks like now.
I like your first one better. You won't believe what they did to the Snap Store.
Yeah.
Something like titles matter.
Ubuntu Snap Shuttleworth.
Abusing open source for clicks.
Mm.
Abusing free software for clicks.
There's a kind of synergy between that story about the Snap that was in the store and, you know, these clickbaity things on YouTube. They both serve the same thing, which is just damage the reputation of Linux and open source.
And the GNOME 3 stuff, too. Even though it might be, you know, legitimately complainable, the way the GNOME stuff gets covered, I think it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. All three of those are related. That is the theme. So how do we encapsulate that? How do we update capsule that? And distribute that via LVFS.
Oh! You do love your EFI, baby.
So what'd you think of that? So instead of having somebody from System 76 come on and do an interview about the firmware thing, I just sent them an email and just read their answers.
It wasn't too bad. I mean, it's slightly less personable, but
it's authoritative content.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it would warrant 15 minutes of a Q&A. You'd almost
really,
have
that
to
was kind of
stretch
a perfect amount for it.
Yeah, you'd almost have to stretch it out to justify them coming on the show. And
or it ended up to like talking about a bunch of other unrelated things.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's a good idea. If you want to get authoritative feedback from authoritative individuals, then doing it, you know, via email or Slack or whatever is probably a good way to, you know, get the clarification that you're after.
Something I've been trying to do more for LAN too is, you know, just send people an email and say, here's my current interpretation. What's your interpretation? And I'm not saying I'm going to like buy into it, but you know, it's
you
good
at least get to hear it. Yeah,
exactly. So what can we do that really encapsulates the? You know, it's the other thing that's ironic is that we shouted FUD for so many years, and now we are the fine purveyors of FUD. Not we ourselves, but open source media are now becoming the fine purveyors of FUD.
We've learned from the best.
So maybe is that the fine? How do you spell purveyor? Is that PROV?
PUR.
PUR.
BEY.
Yeah.
Oh.
Of FUD. What do you think of that? The
FUD shoveling.
The purveyors of FUD. What do you think of that? Is that no good? Or?
No, it's not bad. I mean, it's not. I think it's accurate and nice. I don't know how catchy it is.
Yeah.
That's
okay. All right. The purveyors.
I like it as like a
FUD
magazine
purveyors?
article.
Oh yeah, that's a good magazine title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think something about now how the FUD's coming from the open source media is there's something there though.
Rolling our own FUD.
Homegrown FUD.
Homegrown FUD.
What's your character limit, Chris?
I don't know. Usually about. Well, I don't know. You know, I just
Below
try to,
sounds too long.
I try not to make it wrap on the main website too much. It's really my only threshold. Why? What do you have in mind?
I was just playing with my idea earlier about a shorter version is what happened to the Snap Store ?
No, that is good. But I almost wonder if it's not subtle enough. People will be like, "But look at them, they're clickbaiting," and then they go and bitch about it. You know, you could see how that would be lost on people.
I know. I like the irony.
Yeah. Do we want those people?
Yeah, I know, right?
The answer is yes. Of course we do.
I kind of like homegrown FUD more, I think, but I might be partial to it because I just came up with it off the.
I don't mind homegrown FUD. It'd be nice if we'd also had an article about some sort of like Linux powered farming equipment in the show, but you know, it can't be perfect.
Right. Why can't I type? What's going on with my keyboard?
Is that the right keyboard?
Oh. No, it is not. Thank you. Thank you for stopping me before I did something really stupid. I got to put labels on these keyboards.
Yeah, totally.
That's what's up. Holy crap. All right, so have we all right. So what did you say? Because I was getting all distracted by the fact that I couldn't type.
I'm fine with homegrown FUD.
Yeah? You don't like it, though, I can tell.
No, I like it. I mean, I think it's good. It seems acceptable to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're compromising.
I would give it
no parent was ever happy with a child's school report that said they're acceptable at maths.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. They did fine.
Fine's even worse than acceptable.
All right, so this is Wes's track.
Best track.
It is the best track. It's for show. This is the mumble track.
Oh, okay, never mind. That's the best track.
Oh, that's for show. And then there's the soundboard track. It's not really the best.
How come you don't just have like a separate, always quiet track for Levi?
Because it's not always quiet.
It's not always quiet, no.
Guard dog.
Shouldn't have mic'd the dogs. What were we thinking?
I know, right? Well, I thought they'd have something insightful to say.
Or tummy grumbles.
Yeah, or just an adorable yawn.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have... all right, we'll go with Homegrown FUD, I suppose. What, Mini Hats?
Delicious,
FUD Wars,
nutritious.
the last clickbait.
Filling up on FUD.
Where the F stands for FUD. Debugging FUD. Debunking FUD would be good, too. But, yeah.
FUD
Have we done
business.
Homegrown FUD before? Can you do me a quick site search? That sounds almost... That rings a bell. You know, because this is not a new topic for me to get up on a soapbox about. Unfortunately, it's not helping. It's obvious that it's not helping, but I can't help myself. You don't see Homegrown FUD in there?
No, at the moment.
Sweet. Maybe we'll go with it then. Homegrown FUD.
Would help if I spelled grown right.
I see a Noah in there, but I haven't heard anything from him.
No, I'm here. I just, I like to silently collect data on the from the back.
I'd like the JSON file, please.
Yeah. Can you show me that in plain text?
No.
Have you
I'd
not
like to opt
uninstalled
out,
the meta
please.
packages for your operating system to stop that happening?
Man, I'm really glad you mentioned that. Because I had not watched that far in the video. Because literally, Wes can attest. I started getting triggered about 2 minutes in. And
Yes, you did.
I had to turn it off.
You're
He
shaking.
even acknowledges the mistakes he's making in the video and still bloody uploads it with that fucking title. I just beggars belief.
Yeah, and as the comments point out, like he's got an IT background, so he must technically.
He
know
is allegedly an information security analyst, which I find astonishing.
Well, you know.
That doesn't take much.
Yeah, there's a lot of bottom
No,
of the
there
barrel.
used to be a high bar of it. It's what I used to do. A few
I don't
years
know.
ago.
You know, the
They'll
thing
have
is,
anyone
like,
do it.
you can't. He may be very, very well technically adept. It's just that I just really think, it's like I don't get into the woo-wee part of it in the show, but like as a content creator, like YouTube sucks people's soul. You strip mine everything in the universe to create content for YouTube, and I don't know. I think this is just how it goes. I think this is how you play that game.
I'm sure there's part
If you
of it.
want to
I'm
make
just-
revenue.
Right.
I'm just telling you from personal experience. I have dealt with some people that are quote unquote professionals, and my God, man, I don't know. It's funny too because like a lot of these people, they're book smart, right? Like they can answer all of the book smart things well, but when it actually comes down to problem solving and understand how something works in practice, it's just. I could tell you some stories.
Are you talking about Chris here?
Oh no.
Hey, why I got you? So start talking. Do you hear echo back right now when you talk?
Test.
I am.
Test.
Yeah.
Everyone, shut up. Test. Yes.
Yeah. So whenever I unmute 5.6, so I can't use it for guest back and forth because there's echo back from 4 on 5.6.
So 5.6 is, remind me again, that's Airmaster?
Yeah.
So the interface to your ahead of you and to the left, the little audio or the lexicon that's on the desk there.
Yeah.
There's a little knob, and it is the
input one or the output?
Direct monitor switch.
The second one in from the right. So it says monitor mix.
Yeah.
Make sure that's turned all the way to the right, as far as to the right as it can go.
It's all the way to the right.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it sucks.
The second thing you could do is turn the input volume down, and we could turn up what you're sending so that that box isn't, so that it's not so hot inside it, because that if the inputs are up really high on 5 and 6, then that box is amplifying it, and that's what's bleeding back. So if you sent it a little bit hotter of a level and turn the dials down on the lexicon, the channels 1 and 2, so that's the leftmost knobs. Turn those down a little bit, and then adjusted what you're sending to it. That would fix the problem as well.
Okay. I remember we played around with that a bit.
I got so upset with that. I was dealing with that somewhere else, and I got so upset that I just got mad and said, all right, you know what? It's just going to be 2 interfaces for everything, one for in, one for out. No more.
Yeah, really. That's a great. So do you hear any echo now?
Test.
No, it's better.
Test. Yeah, much better.
Yeah, I haven't mute. So when I mute fight, but sometimes I unmute it for like getting stuff off. Yeah, I got to play with that because next week, I might maybe you and I can test it beforehand. But next week I'm going to try to do TechSnap and LUP from the RV because it's like our last show before I'm on the road.
Should be fun.
So I gotta get that echo figured out, and so I'll just fuck around with that, and I'll turn that down and see if it looks like it's solved, and then maybe you and I can do like a little Source Connect session at some point in a few days and try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How you doing? Are you getting ready for the Ask No program over there, Brown Bear?
I am. That's I show up here and they turn all the lights on for me. It's crazy. It's like I'm expected to do something. I feel like a monkey. So I don't know if I can. How can I can't really show it, but there's if I could take a picture from the other way, there's now a window that sits in front of where the desk is, and they turn these. They finally finished all the lighting, so the lighting like shines down on me. So I feel like a monkey in a fishbowl because I'm just surrounded by all these windows and everyone's looking at me. And kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then it's right by the staircase where people walk out for the day, and we close at 6. So everybody's got kind of wrapping up, and then
they're watching you do a show as they go out.
Well, yeah, exactly. But they just walk out and everyone's making a face or trying to make me laugh or trying to make farting noises or some other ridiculously immature thing. Yeah,
of course.
It's good. It's a good time.
Well, you're not going to tease us what the show's about, though, huh?
Oh no, I can. There's a couple different things. The first thing I want to do, I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, and I can't do 3 weeks in a row on Chromebooks, although I'd love to because I'm just living it lately.
Wow.
But I do have a mini update that I was going to round out the episode last week about USB-C and docks and cool accessories that I found that are amazing. And it just, man, once you get into that infrastructure of just, you can buy a product off a shelf and I don't have to do anything. I can charge it in my car, and I can charge it in a park, and I can use it all with my desk set up and all my monitors and keyboards, and everything just works because it's all one standard.
That's awesome.
Just so great.
It is a good
time.
Why
did it take us so long to get here?
I don't know.
No, I can tell you. But yeah, and then we're going to talk about the PGP flaw that came up, which is not a big thing, but it's a thing.
You can also always punt a bit if you get lost in the details. You can always, I'm sure you'll have it fine, but you can always punt to TechSnap because we did a full breakdown today.
Nice, well done.
Now you of course can you know how we do.
Yeah,
Wes was on top of that one like a maniac.
I mean, and maybe you guys are giving it more justice than I'm planning on it, but I just
no, I probably not.
I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, don't spoil it, but yeah, no.
Gotta keep people.
But there is some interesting. As far as S-MIME goes, there is actually some problems with S-MIME, which we get into a little bit. But yeah,
I mean, I guess the big question I want to ask, and this doesn't give anything away. I'm just asking a question. But you're sending an email from point A to point B. How much do you trust that to begin with? Even before any of this came out, I mean, you're typing something into an email client, a protocol that's been around for 30-some years, and an encryption scheme that is being used since the 90s, and you're sending that across the internet. I mean, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure are you that email is going to arrive and nobody's ever going to decrypt the contents except the recipient?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, let's start there, and then we can have a discussion about the problems and what can be done about it and stuff like that. But I think that's where the conversation starts.
Man, Joe's busting my balls on Late Night Linux for using Reaper. As he puts it, just getting a random deb off the internet and installing it. But I just keep learning new Reaper tricks. Although I did have my first Reaper snafu. My sync got really fucked in Coda Radio. It was all over the place. Both back and forward. But I got presets for different shows now. I got export presets. And I just figured out how to reconnect to the sound interface because it disconnects the sound interface when you render. And the only way I could figure out how to get reconnected was just to close the app. But if you click on the words that says not connected, it reconnects to the sounds interface.
That's smart.
Brings up a menu.
Well, just out of curiosity, he's a music guy. Like Reaper's supposed to be really loved by the music people.
It's because it's the point is that it's not like an officially supported application from the company.
Right. Yeah. They're they're big on that.
I would really like to talk to somebody there and figure out what their intentions are.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Good luck. If you can do that, I'll buy you dinner somewhere because I went so far as to say, listen, I don't want you to guarantee anything. You don't even have to acknowledge that you're actually doing it. All I want to know is why is it that you guys are producing a app? Because that's a lot of work, and they maintain. If you look at the updates, like they update that thing like every couple of months.
Do you update them? Like, should I? And how do I update them?
No, well, you have to go download the new binary and run it. But the thing is, like, the fact that they're intentionally putting that much work into it says something. And why is it they are so? It's seemingly just two completely opposite things. One, they're putting all this work in, and the other time they want nobody to know about it whatsoever, and nobody barely to use it except in the most extreme circumstances. And I don't quite understand. And I flat out told the guy, I was like, listen, I have an entire audience of people that would love to use your product, and they will accept the fact that it's not you're not going to wind up with support requests. You're not going to wind up with people calling and saying this doesn't work. It's not going to be a brand, this brand doesn't work very well. There are people that are willing to do their own troubleshooting, but you just have to be willing to let them know where the thing is.
They put a new build up there while we were recording the show. It looks
they
like.
did.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that's weird too is they also just on their main page they tell you to go use wine.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a very, very, very strange.
So how do I get the new?
Even have an ARM v7 build.
You gotta go to the secret website that you can't say.
I know. I remember you gave me the hint, but I forgot. Give me the hint again. Yeah, that's right.
Milk
butter.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember how. I think I got there by doing the name thing and then putting Reaper in there. That was enough.
Oh, it's .org. Not I sent you the thing, but it's .org.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I got a secret Telegram now. Even better. Yeah, I gotta play around with it because I would love to edit under Reaper, but it's just a couple of things. But I don't know. I'm really tempted. But I'd hate to get all into it and then have them stop.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If the other way to look at it is that they've supported the Windows and Mac versions for years and years and years. So it's one of those things.
How long has the Linux one been kicking around? Do you have any idea?
When we were doing last, we covered when it first got released. We did an episode. It wasn't an episode, but we did a news article on. So I'd say probably maybe 4 or 5 months before the end of last was the very first release. But
so it's been over a year.
So much steam. Oh yeah. It's picked up steam though since then. Like they have a forum dedicated to it, and there's people talking about it. It's just
yeah, there's definitely people talking about it. Cool. Well, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna try upgrading and see how it goes. I'll back up since it's just a binary folder.
Yeah, I was just gonna say upgrade. In other words, rename the folder. Hey, by the way, Chris, I hope you're not on GNOME.
I know. I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. I'm thinking like I launched video games, the X32 Mixer edit, Reaper, all that stuff is binaries, and I'm executing from my phone.
You know what? At least your desktop will be more secure because I know that's something that a lot of Linux users worry about. There,
I was very concerned, very concerned.
Most Linux users, they're very concerned about the security of double-clicking on files they don't understand.
Bro.
Man, yeah, you're right. They're really keeping this thing. They literally just published a version today for Linux.
But look at what's on. Do not read this in big capital bold letters. That's the most work on this entire site is what they went to format this text. Do not redistribute anything from this website. Use only versions here with caution and at your own risk. Do not link to this website or anything here within. Please discuss this only in the pre-release form.
Yeah.
Like, really, dude?
That's not how the internet works, but okay.
That's true.
That's not how the internet works.
As this conversation is evidence of, but all right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing. I don't know. I've not had a single problem under. I mean, I guess you ran into the syncing issue.
But I'm not sure what that was. You know? That's because I also recorded T3
Was
that
Mike
day.
just playing a trick on you and talking all out of sync just to mess with you?
No, I don't think so.
No, that doesn't seem possible.
No, he's not a time traveler. All right, well, I should probably clear out of the stream here. Get things ready. Are you going to do the YouTube thing, or do you need me to do that? Because
I have it up here. The only time when I'm traveling, it's hard, but I have it. I have the thing
before you punch it. I'm going to change the title, so you can go into the titles thing, and so I'll do that. So I'll stop stream and I'll clear out, and then I'll. So what the way my procedure is first thing I do is I turn off the YouTube streams, then I turn off OBS.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
so and then
that is how I was doing. That's how I did it last week. Too.
All right. Well, everybody listening on the live streams, stick around because Brown Bear will be taking over in a few moments, broadcasting from that there Alta Speed.
Broadcast. Not that it affects anyone on YouTube, but or the regular stream. But we're on the new transmitter this week. So you got privy to it back in like February or whatever when we first bought it, but it's officially on the air and working, and so the Ask Noah show is going to sound better than ever because it's all digital from my microphone up to the airwaves.
That's awesome.
Kind of exciting.
That is pretty cool. All right, I'm cutting streams. So by the way,